Hey guys, I'm Matt. Welcome to Cobb Hill Farms. The one lonely day of lake effect snow we've had so far has come and gone. This blanket of white snow is going to be going away. The next day or two, they're forecasting temperatures in the upper 40s, low 50s, and some rain. So this stuff's going to go bye-bye and just make it a muddy mess around here. We're going to do some work in the shop, but before we head in the shop, I want to show you something that kind of bugged me a little bit. Earlier today, I picked up my truck from getting 4 brand new tires mounted on it. They're nice tires. I picked them up from a local wholesale tire outlet right here in town. So I figured I'd keep business local and go to a local auto repair shop to have the tires mounted. Because how hard is mounting tires, right? Well, apparently it's not that simple. When I picked it up, and before I even left the parking lot, I noticed the low tire pressure light was on. I'm like, okay, well, as I started reading through the instrument panel display here, every single tire was telling me it was low on pressure. So if I clear out all the warnings and actually get to the tire pressures, it shows me that my rear tires are at 44, and if I scroll all the way through here again, my front tires are at 40, mid 40s. Now mind you, this is a 3/4 ton Chevy pickup. Those are 10 ply load range E tires. Every manufacturer has a sticker on their vehicle that says what they recommend the tire pressures to be. Every vehicle has it, usually on the driver's side door jamb. This truck, the rears are supposed to be at 80 and the fronts are supposed to be at 65. My question is how hard's your job? This is the stuff, the little things that'll make or break your business. And when you're a small business trying to make a go at it, they've been in business for a few years, those are the little things that just to me are unacceptable. So we're going to go through and air up the rear tires and the front tires where they're supposed to be. Hopefully the light will go off and we'll be good as gold. Now, I'm not here to say that I'm perfect and everything I do is perfect, but when you literally have a light staring at you on the dash, wouldn't that thing tell you something? 80 psi. Let's see if my lights went out. Well, at least the tire pressure light. Look at that. No lights. Now let's see what the tire pressure says. Front tires, one says 76, the other one says 63. Nice. I know what happened there. They didn't put the tires back in the same location, or the rims back in the same location where they came off of. So now one of the front tires is on the back, and they didn't calibrate all the tire pressure sensors for their position on the truck. Now it shows the rear, one at 63, one at 78. Can't get just good service anymore. Oh well. Alright, enough of my rant on that. Let's get in the shop and get working on the Farmall Super M. Turn off my heat. I got the Super M here in the shop. There's kind of a list of things I want to do to it, but the first one was getting the radiator out of it and getting that fixed. Back this summer, we were using this on the 4-star tedder, tedding out some first cut in hay, I believe it was. And I started noticing some antifreeze being blown, wisping out from the bottom side of the hood. Upon further inspection, I noticed the top tank of the radiator, where the top tank is sealed to the cooling fins, was leaking. So I took the radiator out and put it on the bench. I had a pretty rough idea that it was leaking right here in this area. So I took shop air, and I blew all along here with a blowgun real slow, and when I got to this area I could hear air passing into the upper tank, but I blew all along and there was another spot over here that it was doing the same thing, so I decided to run a bead of solder all the way from one end of the tank all the way across to the other end. I also soldered the overflow pipe, and I got that mounted back solid. It was broke free, so I put a little bit of solder on that, and that should be good to go as well. It may not be the prettiest soldering job you've ever seen, but I've soldered up radiators before. I've had pretty good luck doing it. We'll hopefully see if this ends up the same case. I could have taken it to a radiator shop and probably spent a couple $100, but I mean, for the ease of where this location was, I just felt it was something I could do myself. Before we go just setting the radiator in, I'll give the front bolster a little bit of a clean where it sits. It's nice to see what I believe is original Case IH hardware, square-headed bolts and nuts still being used. Come on, there we are. This side's not original hardware. This is just a piece of threaded rod. Looks like somebody welded a nut or something on the end of it, but it works, so we're going to reuse it. Come on. There we are. For right now, I'm just going to tighten up the bolts for the fan shroud and then get the hoses on the radiator, then I'm going to fill it. I don't want to go through all the work of bolting everything all up. God forbid there is a leak, but I at least wanted to get this fastened. Alright, now let's see about getting this lower radiator hose in place. I always liked how International used a cast or stamped steel lower radiator pipe on a lot of their tractors, and then had this short, hose that just connected to the radiator or the water pump. That's just a unique feature that I always liked about International. Put a couple rounds of pipe tape on here just for a little added sealing measure. Well, let's see if I can do this without spilling any. All right, let's see how full it is. Yeah, there's fluid in the top tank. I'll get a light so I can get a better look. Alright, survey says, oh yeah. You don't want to fill these completely full because you got to have room for the antifreeze to expand as it warms up. But you do want it covering the top of the fins. So we look like we're, I don't know, 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch above the fins. Good place to start. Well, let's do a preliminary look along the seams. I don't look like I see anything on this side. How about the other side? It doesn't look like it. How about anywhere else in general? Anything dripping from the bottom? Not that I see. I'm not really under any deadline to get this thing up and running. The only thing I would use it for this time of year is on the feed grinder, and we're pretty well set with feed for a little bit. So I'm going to let the radiator set for a day or so, and I'll periodically check this seam and see if there's anything that develops. Right now it looks good and clean, but if everything looks good, then we'll finish buttoning up the radiator. We'll bolt it in place, get the plate on the front that gives the radiator support this way, and we'll button that up. And in the meantime, I want to examine the wiring for the alternator. This had your typical 12-volt upgrade. It had a Delco Remy 3-wire alternator on it. I don't believe it was wired up correctly to begin with, the one that was on here. I have another alternator that I'm going to put on it. It came off that 460 utility that I bought as a parts tractor last year when we were working on the row crop 460 here. From what I was told, that tractor did charge when it was running, so I'm going to put that alternator on it. But one thing I want to make sure of is I want to make sure I have a 12-volt power source here all the time on this red wire, and then I want to make sure I got a 12-volt switch power on this green wire. And once I know that, then at least I should be able to take care of the rest of the wiring correctly from there. Now the first thing I got to do is hook the battery back up, because I did disconnect the battery before I started working on it. Then I want to make sure my test light works, because if there's one thing I hate, it's going through and figuring out later on that your test light don't work. That's why it's never lighting up. These Delco alternators are pretty simple. They require 2 types of electricity to function. The first is a continuous, hot all the time power wire. That would be this red wire. It connects right to, I believe it's a B terminal on the back of the alternator. That supplies voltage to the field windings and such inside the alternator, but it also provides voltage back the other way. Once the tractor is running and the alternator is creating voltage, it supplies that voltage back to the battery to keep it charged. There's also a jumper wire that comes from the B terminal on the back of the alternator that goes to, I can't remember what the terminal numbers are for the 2-wire plug that goes into the rectifier bridge of the alternator, but this supplies voltage to that all the time. The other wire, this green wire, is a key switch power. That wire is only hot with the key switch on. And what that does is it sends voltage with the key switch while it's running and excites the rectifier bridge into doing its thing in the alternator. So an alternator produces alternating current, both positive waves and negative waves. What the rectifier bridge does, it's made up of a series of diodes, and as the electricity passes through, it allows the positive charges to pass through into the charging system back to the battery. The negative charges it blocks, and they don't do anything. So the alternator produces alternating current, positive and negative waves, and then the rectifier bridge converts it to direct current, or DC current is what the battery uses. So enough of all that, let's see what we got here. This red wire should have battery voltage on it all the time, which it does. Now this green wire shouldn't have any battery voltage on it because the key switch is in the off position. Now let me see if I can reach the key switch and turn the key switch on. Now we have battery voltage. Key switch off, voltage goes away. Key switch on, and key switch off. Well, we know we have power on it when we should, and no power on it when we shouldn't. So now, once we know the radiator is not leaking, we'll put the alternator on it, hook everything up, and hopefully it'll charge. It's a bunch of hours later into the evening now. It's dark outside, not much else to do. So I came back out and was checking the radiator over. All seems to look okay, still nice and dry from what I can see. Checking out the other side, looks like more of the same. I think I'm going to stick with the same game plan as I mentioned earlier in the video. I'm going to let this just sit for another day or two. If everything all looks good, no leaks, then we'll button up the radiator, we'll get it mounted solid. I'll put the new alternator on it, hook up the wiring, we'll fire it up and check the charging system, make sure it is charging. One of the issues we have with a lot of the antiques that we have around here on the farm is there is no charging systems on them. So I'm constantly chasing dead batteries and I'm really getting tired of it. So one of my goals this winter is to go through each one of the tractors and make sure there's a charging system that's functional on a tractor. The only one that I know works at this point is my 1949 Farmall H. So that's just a goal of mine. I want to get all the charging systems functional. So hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you like the channel and you haven't subscribed, I would ask you to hit that subscribe button. I hope you have a great rest of your day. We'll see you next time.